When a crime is executed multiple times, the detectives in the police department try to create an analysis of behavior. Usually, the criminal would behave the same way in a pattern of ways over and over again. And therefore, this way, they'll determine what is the next move of the criminal. Let's say it's a robber. He robs a bank. The first time he robbed was in a certain way. Second time seems to be very similar to the first. He came in at a certain time. He came in doing the same show, same act, same threat. He took the money in the same way. Let's say he handed a bag, told them to put all the money inside. He screamed or he spoke very calmly. He went out. There's a car waiting for him outside. This way they can predict somewhat where is the next strike. This gives them heads up on what's going to be the next move of the robber. And this is something that's very important. It's also very important when you catch finally the criminal, the robber, or whatever it is, to be able to prosecute him correctly, because a chain of events would indicate that this person is the one at fault, that he was doing it knowingly, it wasn't something not intentional, and so on and so forth. Many factors that go into that. That is what we call pattern of behavior. Pattern of behavior is something very important in the language of the body. Whenever you want to learn someone's body language, or whenever you want to learn about yourself, you yourself try to have to know about who you are. You have to learn the pattern of behavior of yourself, of your spouse, of your children, of everybody's surrounding you. It's very important. This way you'll know if you say such a thing, your wife, your husband will behave in such a way. So you have to either avoid saying such things, or if you know it creates a positive feedback, you have to try to say or behave in such a way again and again. It's very, very important for us to understand pattern of behavior. And therefore, in Parashat Bo, we'll find something very interesting. But before we go to Parashat Bo, I just want to mention that last week in Parashat Ve'era, we learned that also when HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells Moshe Rabbeinu to go and meet Paro. He tells him to find Paro by the river. This is the way the Pasuk says, Lech el Paro, go to Paro, Baboker, he will be in the morning, Hinei yotzei hamayma. He will be in the morning by the ocean, by the river. Different explanation in the Farshim, what was Paro doing in the morning by the river. But all of them learned that that was the behavior of Paro. Paro in the morning used to go to the river, whatever reason there was. So Kadosh Baruch Hu doesn't just over here comes to give him a prophecy of what's going to be tomorrow morning. Kadosh Baruch Hu teaches him this is the behavior of Paro, and if you want to find him, that's where you find him. Whenever you want to find somebody, sometimes you'll know that that's what he does. He goes to Mincha, to this shul, you find him in that shul. We all have a pattern of behavior. We wake up in the morning, we make, first thing we do, wash hands, make coffee, go to shul, take the kids to school, run to work, set up all the things that we need at the desk, whatever it is. Each one has his own pattern of behavior. That's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells Moshe Rabbeinu. You'll find Paro over there every single morning. And therefore, go and meet him there. That is true until something very radical happens to a person. Then there's a change to the behavior. And let's see how it works in our parasha. In our parasha, very interesting that whenever Paro wants to meet Moshe and Aaron, he sends messages to call them. We found that throughout every Makkah, that every time there was a punishment to Mitzrayim, he sends to call Moshe and Aaron, as a king should. He doesn't go to the people themselves. He doesn't get out of the palace in order to speak to those they want to speak, but rather he sends messengers, and they should come to him. He's the king. That's fine. So for instance, it says in Parashat Ve'era, ויקרא פרעה אל משה ולאהרון, ואומר לכו זבחו לאלוהיכם בארץ, which means, ויקרא פרעה אל משה ולאהרון. He called to them, which means he sends messages as the Mefarshim explain. Again, when he calls, he says, again in Parashat Vayera, Vayishlach Paro vayikra leMoshe leAaron. Vayishlach, he sends messengers to call Moshe and Aaron. And that's the way it usually goes. But there's a change of behavior in our parasha. And I want to just give a parable to see something similar that we just experienced in New York. For those who live in New York, it touches home. And we remember at the peak of the virus how every afternoon there would be a news conference of the governor. Every afternoon for months and months and months, he would sit on a chair and he would say how many people died today. There's 800 and something people that died today. The momentum is up or it goes down. And this is how many people got intubated and this and that. And usually it would be done in a cheerful voice. He would crack jokes sometimes. He would say about his life. He would say where he's going, where he's been. He would tell you about his family and like to speak about his daughters over and over again. He would be like with a face gesture that everything is fine, although he would say that it's very serious, it's a very bad news today, people were dying all over, but he would give it out in a way that he was calm and happy, and he had a happy look in his voice, in his face. And although at the time people were dying, as I said, by the thousands, and they were getting sick, and the city was in ruins, and there were riots all over the city. Manhattan was getting broken up by every night, and there were terrible riots, and crime was on the rise, off the roof. Everything was so bad in the city, but the conference was such that everything business as usual. That was all true until it hit him home, until it touched himself. As soon as he himself came into a certain story that touched him himself, all of a sudden he changed his voice. He became very serious. And at the last news conferences, which he didn't make so many of, he spoke when he resigned. He spoke in a broken voice, and there were tears in his eyes, and even his enemies, his worst enemies, already felt bad for him. The way he spoke, the way he was broken up. What happened? What happens is there's a pattern of behavior as long as everything is fine. But once he comes to you, once he touches you, once he becomes devastating to you, the pattern of behavior totally changes. A person will do things he never dreamed he would do. He's going to embarrass himself in order to save his life. He's going to do things that normally no one would do. And that's what happens with Paro. Paro had a pattern of behavior as long as everything was outside his palace. People were dying. There were makot, dam, tzfardea, kinim, whatever you want. Mitzrayim was devastated. But he needs to call Moshe and Aaron. It was country matters, city matters, country matters. He brings them and he speaks to them. It's like a businessman speaks to them. This is what I need. This is what you want. Let's make a deal. We cut a deal. We don't cut a deal. Whatever it is. That was all true until the last makkah. The last makkah was makat bechorot. Makat bechorot. It was something totally different. Now it touched him. Says the pasuk, ויהי בחצי הלילה, ואדוני יקח כל בכור בארץ מצרים מבכור פרעה היושב על כיסאו עד בכור השבי אשר בבית הבור וכל בכור בהמה. Which means his own son died at makat bechorot. Not only that, he himself was in danger because Paro was a firstborn. And therefore, the danger was imminent. The danger was real. If that is the case, what happens now and not anymore? He sends messages to call Moshe and Aaron. It says in the pasuk, "Vayikra leMoshe leAaron." He himself went to call them. Vayikra, he himself called them. When? Laila, at night. How did he call them at night? He himself called them at night. You don't call on the phone. There was no phone. What happened? Rashi says, "Magid shaya mechazer al pitchei ha'ir." He went down himself to the city, to the Jewish ghetto, to the Jewish quarter. וצועק, היכן משה שרוי, היכן אהרון שרוי. Started screaming and yelling, where's Moshe? Where's Aaron? Like the famous song Paro in pajamas in the middle of the night. Where is Moshe? Where is Aaron? That is exactly what happened over here. He embarrassed himself in such a way. Why is that? Because when he is in danger, he doesn't care anymore about his reputation, embarrassing himself in front of the Jewish Hebrew slaves, in front of his own nation. Everything goes. He needs to save himself. He goes down. That's something that teaches us a lot. Besides the fact of how much we can learn about human nature, but it teaches us two things. One thing is that the Baalei Musar, Baal Sulam, writes that whenever a person does something on a regular basis, it becomes second nature. Hergel nehefach liot teva sheni. And that's something bad on two aspects. One aspect is if you do something negative, definitely second nature would not be a good thing. When you're used to doing something that's negative, for instance, a person that has bad eating habits, he eats things that are unhealthy, it becomes a second nature. It's very dangerous. A person that smokes becomes a second nature. It can't stop. It becomes addictive. Not only that, even the Mefarshim explain that even when you do a positive thing, it's not a good thing. Why? The Torah says that every mitzvah and everything we do should be as we do it for the first time. Asher anuchi metzevecha hayom yu beinecha kechadashim. Bechol yom yu beinecha kechadashim. Every day you should read Kriyat Shema. Every day you should do Torah. You should learn Torah. You should do mitzvot. You should strengthen your emunah like it is the first time you're doing it. You kechadashim should be new every single day. Like today you were commended. I'm commending you today. Today, commended us in Har Sinai. No, it's like I'm commending it. Kadosh Baruch Hu wants to emphasize that we have to renew ourselves every single day, even in Avodat Hashem. Because when we do things over and over again with a pattern of behavior, with a regular thing that we continuously do with a pattern, that's not a good thing because it becomes a second nature. And the Navi screams that we do the mitzvat anashim melumada. We shouldn't do mitzvot as mitzvat anashim melumada, which means without feeling it. Just you do things on a regular basis, which means you regularly pray. So you go to shul, you're not even thinking, you don't know where you're going. Then you stand up in Shmoneh Esrei, you're just saying the words. If somebody comes up to you and asks you where you are, oh, I'm making coffee. What am I? I'm right now in the office. I'm in shul. What am I doing? You're not even thinking. That's not a good thing. Person should change himself consistently. Now, obviously, it's easier said than done, but in our parasha, we see how one can do it. Many times, there's a reminder, Kadosh Baruch Hu shakes us up. And many times the Kadosh Baruch Hu shakes us up. He shakes us up in so many different ways. And that one should take as an opportunity. Just like Paro was shaken up, that was an opportunity for him. Every single makkah that it shook the place, the nation, he could have shaken up and changed his behavior. But we do things in the same exact way, and we change for a moment, and then we go back. That's the way it is. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants us to try harder to change ourselves completely at one time. I mean, completely is very hard, but at least make a change, make a move towards perfection.